Florence Nightingale got the name Ministering Angel from one of the reporters who saw her in action in the Crimean War. 1854 to 56. Conditions were terrible, and she was sent to an awful hospital. It wasn't really a hospital, it was a barrack. And there weren't beds, the men were lying on the floor, there wasn't adequate food, and worst of all, the sewers were overflowing, the ventilation was terrible, the sickness rate was awful. All of that was very appalling. And Nightingale worked to make things better, and she did the analysis after the war. She said this should never happen again. And she was an expert at statistics, and she got out the data to show this is what went wrong and how do you do it differently. So she made a lasting contribution. Florence Nightingale got the reputation of a ministering angel for what she did hands-on during the war. But then she used that reputation to analyze data afterwards to say, you can't have enough ministering angels. You need better systems. You need better food. You need hospitals that are clean and safe. And she made those changes. Okay. What Nightingale actually did in the Crimean War is reported in this long book, more than 1,000 pages, on the Crimean War, with this very sanitized version on the cover, a famous painting. Nightingale is in the painting and military people. It looks all too cleaned up. You see a body on the floor of a soldier, but you don't see all the filth and you don't smell the smells that were part of the terrible unsanitary conditions of the war hospitals that she had to work to clean up. Nightingale took down these letters, and sometimes the family sent the letter to the local newspaper. Here is one that appeared in the Derby Mercury. Barrack Hospital, Scutari, 12th of April, 1855. It was to the mother. I am very sorry to have to communicate to you the illness of your poor son, Private John Cope, 95th Regiment, number 2884. He was admitted here about 10 days ago, suffering from diarrhea. He was immediately attended to by surgeons, by one of my nurses, and myself. He was fed in small quantities and frequently with port wine and arrowroot. He wished very much to have a letter written to you, and 2 or 3 times I went to him for the purpose, but he was always too weak and put it off. And once he wandered and said it was done. He often murmured, "Dear, dear mother," and tried to say many things to you, that he was well cared for and wanted for nothing, that he had no wish for anything. I sent for the chaplain, who came twice, and both times he was quite sensible and prayed fervently, and said he was quite happy in mind and could follow all that was said. He spoke little after this and sank rapidly, and died at 2 o'clock on the morning of Easter Sunday, quite quietly and without pain, in the full hope of a resurrection with him who rose again on that day. I remain with true sympathy for your grief. And Florence Nightingale signs it at this point, P.S. I would have sent you something of his, but he left nothing. This is a typical letter that Nightingale wrote to families.